Hey Anshul, welcome to the gaming podcast by Underdog. Ladies and gentlemen, the founder of Totality Corp. Thank you for being here, Anshul.
Thank you so much, Vaibhav. It's a pleasure and really looking forward to our conversation.
Sure. So before we jump on to what you are exactly doing at Totality Corp, help me with a few very basic terms. With an amazing journey and experience into this space, I believe you could elaborate this beautifully. So Anshul, curious question to begin with: what is NFT?
Okay. All right. Great question. So, look, I'm sure many people know NFT's full form is non-fungible token. But I think the essence of the NFT is it's a technology wrapper, which we will really use to store anything that is personalized to us, right?
Yeah.
And like the way we have to start thinking about NFTs is whether we look at our social network, which is obviously our personalized data for our digital social network, what we order from Zomato in terms of our choices and things we like, on the basis of which Zomato personalizes what you do. The same happens with Google search, etc. The clothes you're going to wear inside sort of the digital worlds, how your avatars would look like, any cryptocurrency that you own, etc. Everything is actually an NFT because it is unique to you and it has attached your personality. So the way to think about it, in my view, is what Anshul is in the real world. In the digital world, there will also be a master NFT, which will actually have each of these of personalized data, digital ownerships, digital lands, currencies, all as individual NFTs, so that I can also, based on my own decision, trade them, use them, give it to someone else to be used to get benefit from them, right? So in essence, NFTs are a digital wrapper for you to personalize whatever is unique to you itself. So it's a very, very broad sort of use case.
Got it. And it's like your own identity. Like you can create that same online, right? What is this? The basic process of it. Like I hear a lot of people talking about, uh, you know, uh, this works on blockchain and how it is stored on, the ownership, how it is stored on it, and all that. Can you just give a brief about it, because a lot of people are confused about this decentralized process.
Yeah, sure. So look, the way it's actually, so what are the essential differences if we talk about, say, the Ethereum chain?
Hmm.
When you look at fungible tokens or cryptocurrencies, a lot of them are ERC20 standard,
Yeah.
which is the Ethereum standard, or in NFTs, the two common standards today are at least 721 and 1155, right? 721 is probably by far the most common NFT standard, right? The difference is really what you're attaching is with every NFT, when you make it non-fungible, you attach a unique ID, right?
Yeah.
And that unique ID means that because my ID of the NFT, even if it is the same photograph, it could be the same photograph, right? Okay. No one stops us to say that if I took this screenshot of what we are doing right now, and I made 5,000 NFTs in it,
Yeah.
the only different technically what will happen is each of the 5,000 will actually still have a unique ID. And because they have a unique ID, it's a unique identifier, and hence is not necessarily fungible, right? So because my unique ID could be number 534, your unique ID could be number 1. And so it is something which is unique and different, right? Whereas in an ERC20 contract, there is no unique ID itself. You could say there are 20 million of them, and hence one will be exactly the same as the other. So really, technically, that's essentially the difference to understand it at a basic level.
Got it. So let's say, for an example, I buy an NFT, right, in the digital form. Let's say the digital art piece. What are the possible ways, that a person makes money after he buys it? Like obviously, it's like a social status kind of a thing. But what are the possibilities of making money once I buy it? And what do you see? What do you see happening in the near future? Probably these might not be the things happening right now, but according to you, this might happen in a few years.
Right. So see, like you're rightly saying, today predominantly the value of NFTs as digital collectibles is being driven by social status, right? Yeah. So if you own a CryptoPunk or you own a Bored Ape, it is really the value is increasing because they have attained the social status. status in any society is very difficult to attain with money, right? You'll have to do some work. But right now in the NFT space, you can own it with money because your identity predominantly is hidden, right? So the only way to know who you are is through the NFT, and hence you can attain status with money. So also for people to really understand is, imagine, like today we give a lot of value to people who are the best in their medical field, who are best as IAS, as police, as technology, as entrepreneurs, and it takes years and years of credible work to get to that status. Now imagine suddenly you've given people an opportunity that you will be that popular and attain that status with money. The prices are going to shoot up because there are a lot of people who have money, right? So suddenly the value here is, unfortunately, the majority of NFT being sold today as collectibles, the primary value is that, can you guess whether this will become a social status symbol, whether it will become an adoption? And hence it's still very, very speculative in my opinion, right? Now, if you're someone who can assess that, then great for you. A lot of money to be made. I personally have invested in 25 NFT projects. Oh. I can tell you that 21 of them are below the mint price. So I'm at an absolute loss. 4 have done well. If I really look at how have 4 done well out of the 25, so net I've made a tiny bit of money because the 4 did really well. However, I think it was more luck than, because for me, all 25 were great, right? So I think it's I am not maybe the right person to create the social status, right? So, however, like you rightly also said, a lot of use cases, one of them being explored in utility is access, right? So Gary Vee is doing this really, really well.
Yeah, it's VeeFriends, right?
VeeFriends, correct. So he is actually selling NFTs as an access point, right? So think about all your loyalty cards, right? All your air miles or everything that you do with credit card loyalty, etc., will eventually become an NFT, right? Because today what happens is, I could be an Air Vistara member as a gold member doing a lot, but now say tomorrow, for whatever reason, I stop traveling or I want to switch airlines, there is a value that I have generated. What happens? I can't transfer it to you. Yeah. The beauty about the NFTs is I'll be able to transfer it to you, right? Correct. And so there is a real case to be made that NFTs actually help you do that. And that'll be one area, loyalty. Another area, access to conferences, individuals like Gary Vee has done. One of the other areas which we are doing is, can you actually abstract investments and give utility to making money inside an NFT, right? And the benefit I see is, we are already seeing that, when people talk about money and finance, it's way too serious, right? Can we attach the feeling, Tesla has shown us that emotional value actually once it gets attached, the valuation of a company and the mission starts getting priced in, right? Yeah. So can we actually combine it with the aesthetic value? And when I say aesthetic, I just don't mean the way it looks. In game design, aesthetics is the way we feel about it, right? So can we attach that through the NFT for investments? Can we actually do multiple utility where it can either convert to a 3D avatar, and then later, if you want to burn it, it converts to an economic token as well, right? Can it actually change value, right? So for example, one of the things I would love to do or love to coordinate with someone is, let's say we want to do farm to table farming, right? So offline to on-chain activity, because this is an area which I think starts getting popular rather than offline to online. It'll start becoming O2O, offline to on-chain. Yeah. Imagine that you're selling an apple orchard and you sell NFTs of every tree as a seed, right? Because you buy it at the seed level, you plant the seeds, your NFTs actually grow from the seed to a tree, right? And you actually, once you get that apple, you can either take the apples from the tree, get it delivered to your home, sell it to someone, sell the produce to someone else and make money from it. So the use cases, the reason I'm giving this O2O example is the use cases are actually infinite. We haven't even literally scratched the surface of what it could be.
Correct. Absolutely amazing insights. You also mentioned something that, how you are trying to revolutionize this. I'm curious to know, what are you exactly doing at Totality Corp and what the model really is? I've been reading a lot about zionverse also. So a couple of my friends, are a part of Totality Corp. So I just wanted you to explain it in a much better way.
Sure. So at Totality, our digital ecosystem is called zionverse, like you rightly pointed out. And our vision is to really, I think the metaverse is going to be the place you live, right? And when I say that, we already spend, like I spend 12 to 13 hours every day interacting digitally, right? Whether that's for work or personally. I think a majority of people have started to do that anyway, right? So it's the same thing that's going to happen, right? We are going to accept the only thing that's going to progress now from what we are already doing in Web 2 is the experiences become a lot more immersive and become more interactive and become more intense, right? So fundamentally, if I think about it, like social networks have always existed, right? Earlier, because there was lack of communication, they were limited by your physical closeness, right? So if you were in the same castle and the same old city, you were a network. Then mail came, like literally physical mail. Then telephones came, then mobile came, then internet came, then apps came. We kept expanding it. And now if you see, Facebook was really text-based, Instagram was photo-based, TikTok is video-based. So now the next social network is definitely going to be built on top of gaming, right? And we already see in Minecraft, Roblox, PUBG, Fortnite, that these are social networks, but they are a lot more focused on immersion rather than the network effect, right? Because very tough to create content for someone, very tough to come in. Like, it's not an easy thing for people to come into a PUBG or Clash of Clans. Like, if I tell my mom or anyone else who's not a gamer, they're not just going to come in and say, oh yeah, cool. Like, it's not like a Facebook. The interface is more meant for people who are a little more hardcore, right? Correct. Whereas if you see hyper casual, a lot of people are there, but there is really nothing to engage you. So the gaming as a social network will have to be, in my view, some combination of Minecraft and the network effects of what we already see in TikTok, right? So make it as easy to create like TikTok did, where very little effort done by the individual, more remixing, and the world where you can create very easily like Minecraft and it's still engaging. So that's the core of what we are building. We are a Web3 social network, right? How it's going to pan out is it'll look like it is a 3D world. You come, you create your own place to live, your digital pets, your digital garden. You will have games to interact with each other. And that's how you build that social network. There will be the element of user-generated games. And obviously, everything in Web3, in addition, that actually comes is ownership, right? So Web3, because it's decentralized, ownership becomes a lot more relevant than what it used to be in Web 2 or what it is in Web 2. And with ownership, there are two aspects which I think are very important. One is autonomy, right? Like, I am the owner. I decide what actually happens rather than Facebook or WhatsApp deciding what happens with whatever they have assigned to me. And the second part is, as a true owner, now I am incentivized to remain a good actor for the ecosystem, right? So not only you benefit, but since everyone is now aligned to boost the ecosystem, if it works, the ecosystem gathers value for everyone very, very, very quickly, right? And that's the other benefit of what we are seeing in Web3. The last thing I'll say is, the other part we are doing is all the content stories we are building around Indian culture, history, and mythology. And why we picked that area is, look, we eventually obviously connect with games, right? It's an emotional connect eventually. And so one of the things I was thinking is, like, do we create our fictional world? And obviously, once people get on board, they love playing it, then the connect comes, which is what traditionally games have done.
True.
I, however, felt that if it has to be something which is mass adopted, we need a way for us to connect, right? And in my view, like, we connect with cricket a lot, and we connect with our culture and history a lot, right?
It's a lot more relatable, I think.
Correct. Correct. And so I thought that this is a great area for us to build. So, and the thing I was really positively surprised about is when I pitched this in a brainstorming session to my team, which is very young, they were super duper excited, right? And I was like, wow, so there is something here, right? People were like, oh yeah, I would love to, make this thing about Shiva, and I would love to know this, and I would want to make these characters. And if we make a village of that time, I will do this and that. I will make this animation. I talked to other sort of people who have interacted with Totality over the last 4.5 years. And some of them were like, yeah, we already make temples in 3D just as a hobby, right? Like, because we love it. We love the architecture and stuff. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even realize how much people already feel this need to connect. And this was, to me, is a, validated it qualitatively. And then with the Lakshmi NFT that we did last month, it validated it quantitatively as well and objectively, that this is a community which has that need to connect and relate to, like you rightly said, with our culture and history.
Absolutely. I think, the emphasis on Indian culture, religion, or mythology, right? It's relatable for me as well, because, I've been in the industry for the last 15 years making games, right? For different companies. And I've seen that shift. People kept talking about the great stories that India has, but they were of this opinion that why is nobody making games on Indian stories, Indian culture? Or but I have when you say that the younger crowd was excited about it, I can relate to it, because over the past 2 years, I have seen a wave of independent developers in India, just picking up Unreal and Unity and just creating stories around similar topics, right? And somebody had to do it. Somebody had to start doing it. I think we have much richer stories than worldwide, right? Like any other mythology. So
absolutely. So sorry, but like I would just re-emphasize on the point you were saying. We have such a rich amount of stories and culture, right? Like, and we have already seen it with Greek mythology, very, very popular globally. We have seen it with Norse mythology, with Vikings, right? All the way from God of War to even characters in Marvel, Thor, Odin, Loki, to tons of Netflix series, everything does amazingly well, right? And it's not like a lot of people ask me, hey, is Indian mythology, like, we get it, India is large, Indian diaspora is large. So anyway, between them, we are talking about 1.5 to 1.7 billion of population of the world. Correct. Between all the Indian diaspora and India. So that's anyway a massive market, right? But also I think, like, we have that richness. Like, why won't other people like it, right? Like, it's not like we don't like I have seen a lot of Viking, tons of people play God of War. Why won't we like it, right? It's obviously the execution has to be right, which is on us to execute it right. But the fundamentals are already there of the superhero versus super villain stories, which are also part of our culture and history.
Yeah. And I think it is already validated by the Western market as well, where you see games like Far Cry using Indian setup, or say games like Lost Legacy, doing, completely around Shiva and Ganesha. So the validation worldwide has already been done. Why are we not doing it at this point?
Right. And also, it's interesting because when I was doing this research, there are a lot of Indian gods which are actually characters in Marvel comics. They have never become that popular. So we have already had that in Marvel comics, but because obviously we weren't the demographic for Marvel comics when it was actually comics, it probably never propagated to that level, right? That may change in this next 5 or 6 years.
Absolutely. You kept using these words, like, just for the audience to understand it better. You kept using these words, Web 2, Web 3. Right? How is Web 3 different from Web 2? And also, I want to know your thoughts on metaverse as a whole.
Sure. So just as an evolution, internet really came in sort of early 90s. So early 90s to around 2003, 4 is the era of Web 1, which was mostly you accessing the internet through your browser. You mostly, like, some people writing it and you mostly reading it, right? You couldn't really do much with that data. And then from 03, 04, we started getting interactive content, right? Whether through web and also then 2008 onwards, the boom in mobile apps, where you could now interact with the data, like it, comment on it, even create data. So the boom in creator economy with Facebook apps, etc. And now I think last year was the mass adoption beginning of Web 3, which is that you have reading, writing, and also ownership, right? And I think it's when I look at it, like I said, ownership is a very big angle, but also the combination of actually, so the other thing that Web 3 is actually solving for is that we see finance and we see what we do in real life as two separate channels, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people in our parents' generation used to say, काम करना होता है पैसे के लिए, असल जिंदगी में your hobby has to be something different, right?
Correct.
So now we are seeing, like, even whether we work in startups, whether we do our own thing, whether we are freelancing, whether we even join a company, we want to obviously make money. Money is very important, but we also want to do something we are passionate about, right?
Correct.
And in the same way, Web3 is integrating finance as another interaction in that system rather than something outside, right?
Yeah.
So like what happened with Facebook is they built a great social network. Then they were like, monetization. Okay, ads, right? Easy, let's do it. Then they were like, now people are ready to pay money. So YouTube started, and obviously Twitch started it, but then super donations started. YouTube adopted that. Then there is shopping now directly on Instagram and Facebook, etc.
Yeah.
Web3 starts with the notion that we will integrate it from the very beginning itself, right? So that's the other important angle. Metaverse, like I said, is the place you live digitally. See, today, a couple of angles. I won't repeat what I said already. Couple of angles we have is, what I do on Facebook has no consequence on what I do with Twitter, has no consequence on what I do on Google search, etc. Right? There are a few reasons for it. Number one being that for Google data to move to what I'm doing on Facebook, Google and Facebook will have to agree to share data. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So entire Web3 and Metaverse is being built permissionless, right? Which means the permission is with me as an owner, as a user, rather than with the companies building it. So if I tomorrow go out in the Web3 world of Google search and Facebook, if I say, hey, Google, share your data for my Facebook so that my experience becomes better, that's my choice, and I do not need to take anyone's permission. So my experience can be enhanced if I choose to do that, right? Like Brave browser, I decide that, show me ads, share my data, but give me some incentive to do it. It could be an incentive as an experience or a tangible token. It could be many things, right? So that's permissionless is another very, very important part. And the other, as I mentioned, is immersion. Now, let's talk about immersion, because most people in Web3, the view is, or Metaverse, the view is, it's like Ready Player One. We're all going to sit on our couch, put on some VR glasses, become couch potatoes, and then we do everything in this virtual world wearing bodysuits, right? I strongly differ, right? I think immersion, like I used to be obviously a console gamer in Atari, became a PC gamer, came back to console gaming, and I'm now very proudly a mobile gamer, right? I play Clash of Clans a lot. I know mobile gamers are still considered to be not serious gamers, right? But my immersion in Clash of Clans is as much as, like, I don't really need to wear VR glasses to be in it in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Like my entire household knows that if I'm attacking, particularly in clan war, I cannot be disturbed for those 3 minutes of attack and planning, right? Like it's a no disturb zone, right? They may walk into my Zoom meeting. No way can they disturb me in that 3 minutes. And so is VR more immersive? Yes. Is VR the only immersion? Absolutely no, right? Is VR technology affordable today? No. Is VR a lot of effort, even if you afford it? Absolutely. Like imagine playing a PUBG or Battlegrounds India game wearing a bodysuit and running around, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you may do it like, hey, I did my workout in the morning while playing PUBG. Great. It's a specific use case though.
Correct.
Right? Are you going to play that for 10 hours on some weekend you wanted to go crazy? No way, right?
Yeah.
Why do you do it, right? Like biologically, the most efficient tools we have are our fingers, right?
Correct.
Which is why console gaming, mobile gaming, the input has always been our fingers, right? It was done with a thought, not a default. So the metaverse is going to be more immersive, but the immersion is still, in my view, going to be mobile first, but also just that's why it's on the fundamental of gaming, because gaming is immersive already, right? You have a lot of interaction. Instead of it being YouTube, which is a little more broadcast oriented, now you are interacting with each other on a live concurrent basis, and hence your social connection that you form is going to be definitely more intense than it has been on Web2 social networks. So that's sort of what I believe is the metaverse and how we are evolving from what we have today.
Yeah. Since you mentioned Ready Player One, and I totally understand, the differentiation that you just did. Do you think that is even possible, or let's say, like, to put it in a different way, how far are we from Ready Player One?
From a Ready Player One?
Yeah.
So see,
Also,
one thing I'll say is I was blown away by the. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Also, I'll also just, sorry to cut you, but also, is it even a possibility that this would happen? Because just the point that you just mentioned about, it's a use case. You can't do that for, for a longer period of time. But what are your thoughts on that? Like, how far are we, or is it going to even happen?
So, look, I like I've already said my view. I think metaverse is going to be mobile first. Then it'll be a lot of elements of AR, and VR will be probably the last. And that's because the amount of money and effort both required for adoption and the benefit you get of immersion, right? So it's a balance and trade-off. Like I said, it's gaming, so you're already immersed in that system. Even if it's on your mobile, it'll become more immersive if you're on console, because the degrees of what you can do increases even more. AR, it'll increase even more. VR will increase even more. But when you trade it off versus the effort and the cost, it's not worth it in my view, right? And so will we adopt to only VR? My personal view would be no. And that's why I'm not that big about, Meta or Facebook Horizons is the way to build sort of what the world is coming, or everyone has jumped into that, right? Microsoft is like, great, in Teams, we could just wear your, VR glasses and we'll be able to see each other. I mean, why? I mean, I really don't get the point, right? Like, why am I wearing this bodysuit and you touch me and I feel it? Like, seems very unnecessary, right? Like, actually seems very ridiculous also, right? Like, why should that happen, to be honest, right? So, and since if my view is right, and if the need for adoption is going to be low, the cost points will never come where it could get mass adopted, right? So it's obviously, like everything, it's a chicken and egg problem. So where could I be wrong, right? Where could I be wrong in my view? And we suddenly see a mass need of adoption is really that this bodysuit aspect of doing it. Where else can we really see it being adopted? Like, if you see work, we say that, listen, people can do, like, maybe it will come for regulation and compliance, maybe, I don't know. I really don't see a use case as to how VR gets adopted and we get to Ready Player One. Can technically we solve it? I will say yes, we will be able to technically solve it and get there. Will we get it to a price point where there is mass adoption or the need for mass adoption? I would say no. So technically, yes. Price, need, no.
Got it. Also, do you think, this metaverse concept has been explored, I think a decade back around, like we used to play games like Second Life.
Right.
I feel it's exactly the base concept is exactly the same, right? What are your views on that?
So see, obviously the idea of, even like I said, Roblox, Minecraft, Second Life, like you rightly said, was one of the first ones to make a digital twin and actually say that, hey, it is your actual digital twin you can buy. And they were the first ones to actually do it away from a gaming environment. I think the difference is that, again, see, Second Life, they left it a little bit to utopia, right? And they said, here, we have given you the infrastructure. Let's see what people do. And see, suddenly when you give people anonymity, the first things people will do is what they're not allowed to do in real life when they aren't anonymous. And hence Second Life really became a place to explore sensuality rather than anything else, right? And now it's just a place to explore that. They are a profitable company, got bought by a VC recently, etc. And I think the mass adoption and the need was, it was just left to its own devices, right?
Correct.
I think we could not have come to Web3 without learnings of Web2 in terms of UI, UX, and ease of creation.
Got it.
By that, what do I mean is, we know now, given our everyone's Web2 experience, that there is a way we have to structure interactions, right? So some part of it is we have to lead people to do the things we want to create there, right? Reddit is a great example, right? Like, a lot of people ask me, which is a one Web2 app where you feel that a lot of Web3 aspects are already there? And I would say that's Reddit, right? Because it is probably, out of all the Web2 apps, the most decentralized place where actually a lot of stuff happens and done by people themselves, right? So the karma system actually also showed us, and which is why tons of Web3 Discord groups actually literally have copied that karma system, right? Because I think it's a great example to get us and to make people good actors, right? And that's what I was saying about ownership. So what Second Life, I guess, missed on, the idea was exactly the same, is that we will have to also navigate people, right? You can't just leave people and say, oh, I've given you the technology to do it, now go and build it yourself.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of,
Learning curve.
making sure, and driving it towards those interactions.
Yeah. All right. Before we wrap it up, right? Last two questions I have for you.
Sure.
What are the challenges you feel to create a sustainable NFT game? A game like Axie Infinity, needs new players joining to keep prices up, right? What are the challenges for this?
So I think, see, unfortunately, what has happened is, so one of the first products we did is we actually built MGPL, which was the first real money gaming platform for mobile games, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we understand real money fairly well. And see, the problem is, like, a lot of the blockchain games, because we were integrating actual finance inside, have become like the pitches that these are real money making opportunities only, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I believe Axie is, and they've done an amazing job, but what I believe Axie is a zero sum game in terms of AXS token, right? Now Axie is very good at what they do, and they have managed the price of AXS above, it keeps going up versus dollar. Obviously, with recent, every token has fallen, they have taken that hit as well.
Yeah.
And so it feels like in dollar terms the pie is growing, but it is a zero sum game, right? So, and hence, like you rightly said, it will need new players. Now, for it to happen and be sustainable, there have to be some economic drivers inside, apart from this real money aspect which exists, right? Which is wealth redistribution. And the aspect has to be that some people will come in and get some internal or intrinsic need fulfilled. Will I get entertained? Will I feel more competent in the game? And hence you increase my levels, badges, get me more into flow. Will I want to showcase my digital costumes because now this is a digital network, I'll pay for it. Can I add other economic drivers, which is why we added crypto finance and DeFi value inside the game to say, let's grow the pie larger. Will we be able to create a marketplace where companies like Amazon trade through Zionverse or the other metaverses, right? Where instead of us doing this on some other software, we do it on one of these metaverses. So there is real economic value being added. Until that happens, this wealth redistribution is a limited function, right? Like, I could see why all real money gaming moves to blockchain for sure. I could also see why a lot of Web2 games start moving, because there is a lure of money for everyone, for all of us. So adoption is a lot easy. So I can see that it will only be sustainable when we build these long-term economic drivers.
Got it. Super insightful, Anshul. Thanks a lot. Just a last question. Not a question, but any last advices? Last words, advice, tips to the people, to the younger crowd who wants to start investing into NFT gaming, or say start building on NFT.
So I think, like, my first advice for anyone listening to this would be that actually the great opportunity has already come for you to start creating different sort of content for this world, right? And rather than, like, there are tons of videos on people looking at investing in NFT. So I'll focus on the real longer term value of you creating it, because that's probably as needed as someone buying it also, right? And the beauty is that right now, a lot of this will still be done out of the platforms we know, which is Unity. It'll be, Unreal, to actually build this interactive content, right? And in terms of whether you have to build your 3D assets, it's going to be the same software that people know, right? And the demand, and see, getting Unity onto the blockchain is still very far away, right? Like, there are games out there pitching that all game events will actually come on chain. I have a very strong opinion. Let's not even talk about it for the next 5 years. We haven't yet been able to get 1,000 people to play in, one server instance, and we are talking, getting 1 million people writing every data on chain. Not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So the beauty is we have this moment for us to start creating content, and what you have to start thinking about from game is that when we were talking about game, you're only looking at the persona of people who are highly engaged and highly interactive. Yeah. Now start thinking that, can you make it a little bit of a lighter touch, still interactive, still fun, still immersive, but those actions are more relatable to the masses, right? So can we get people who are doing stuff on TikTok to come into a game and have as much more fun and as much fun, and what can you build for them, whether that's 3D art, assets, interactions in games, game mechanics themselves. That should be the value add that people should start thinking about.
Awesome. Thank you, Anshul. Those are like 40 minutes action-packed, valuable information to the audience. Thank you once again.
Thank
you.
It was
a great chat. It was a great chat.
Great. Thanks a lot, Vaibhav. Thank you so much.
Thank you.